to the Work Trends podcast brought to you by Talent Culture. I'm your host, Megan M. Bureau. Every week, I interview smart people reimagining the world of work. Be sure to stay current with all of our interesting podcasts by visiting our page at Talent Culture Work Trends on Apple Podcast or Spotify. And of course, you can listen at talentculture.com on the podcast page. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Talent Culture Work Trends podcast, sponsored by iSpring. I'm your host, Megan M. Bureau. Today, we are discussing the nuts and bolts of selecting and rolling out an e-learning ecosystem within an organization. From identifying needs to research to rollout, we are going to lay out advice and insights into how to go about the initiative of embracing e-learning as it exists in today's landscape. But before we begin today's podcast, please, let's do some soul searching. Go ahead and ask yourself these two questions. Number one, would your organization benefit from an e-learning initiative? And number two, what kinds of courses would be game changers for educating yourself and your employees? All right, let's jump right in. Joining us today is Kyle Matthews from BC Services, who is a client of our sponsor, iSpring. Kyle has worked in the learning and development industry for 10 years. His primary focus is effective digital training content, and he is passionate about fostering growth mindsets and development opportunities within organizations to allow professionals to meet their goals. We are thrilled you're here with us today, Kyle. We have so much to catch up on, right?
Thank you. Yes, I am thrilled to be here as well.
Well, let's get started. I'm going to take it from... You joined BC Services at an entry-level position 10 years ago and evolved to be a digital learning leader. Please elaborate how along your career journey you decided to take on the initiative of researching, creating, and deploying an e-learning system.
Yeah, absolutely. So the answer isn't necessarily pretty, but it is the truth. I was just getting burnt out. We had new employees starting every 2 to 3 weeks, with the typical onboarding time being about 2 weeks. So I was constantly in this training grind of teaching and quizzing and auditing and just doing a lot of clerical work that ended up taking away from my passion of helping the new employees achieve that click moment where they truly could understand what it was we were asking them to do. I knew that there had to be a better way to train employees that was more efficient and would ultimately let them take the training wheels off a little bit sooner and get to their actual jobs.
This is incredible, Kyle. I have to say, I really admire how you charged forward with your vision of change and you stayed true to yourself. You know, when you get that moment going, there's a disconnect self, I have to do something about it, and you did. And I think many of our listeners may find themselves relating to the pain points and ideas that you're about to share in this process by, seeing the gaps and skillfully finding the solutions. You're changing the trajectory of the business and your own career by doing so. So tell us, Kyle, what were the criteria when you researched the LMS, authoring tools, and the entire e-learning ecosystem?
So I really didn't know much of anything about e-learning at the beginning of this, but through my research, I knew that we needed a product that was simple for me to use, but also simple for our employees to use. We needed really great reporting features because our industry is very highly regulated, and we need to prove to auditors every year that employees are meeting the training requirements that are set out before them. And I also needed buy-in from the corner offices, so I knew that it needed to be affordable, as it was likely going to be the largest item under the training budget for many years to come. And after days and weeks and even months of research and demoing, we landed on iSpring as our LMS because they most closely aligned with our needs.
Can you talk us through, when you say weeks and months, I mean full time? I'm trying to give the audience a real sense of what it takes. And obviously it depends on the size of the organization, right, Kyle?
Yeah, absolutely. So what research ultimately took me months to do, that was actually alongside my full-time job of just being a trainer. So finding time between training classes, between answering questions, between, the hands-on interaction with new employees, I would take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long I could eke out between the training to do the research, to schedule demos, and it was just a process. It did take a lot of work, and ultimately I knew that even though it was a big effort in the beginning, it was going to save me time, it was going to save the employees time, and it was going to save our company money and onboarding over the coming years.
Well, I tell you, that is a great checklist for anybody who may want to emulate your process. It is comprehensive and it makes perfect sense. So thanks for sharing that. So let's discuss the steps once you selected iSpring as your technology partner. How do you recommend somebody in your shoes plan the strategy, the implementation, and deployment for a company that is new to the vast world of e-learning?
I would say start with the highest impact training first. For us at BC Services, that was onboarding, because every single new employee that came through the doors or that we hired remotely, they had to take the same classes that covered a lot of compliance materials up front. We had our security training, we had our, disclosure process with the protected data that we handle. So once you have the courses developed for one solid area of training, you can implement that training and then you can keep the snowball going, because once you've implemented some online e-learning training, that frees up more time for you to further develop and then implement other courses. I would say the initial implementation isn't going to be perfect, so don't expect that of yourself. There will always be little tweaks that you can make, and just know that going into it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to allow trainers more time to fill in the granular gaps that employees need. For instance, rolling out our first onboarding courses saved me 2 to 3 full days of in-person training, and that was per group of new employees. So, every 2 to 3 weeks, I get 2 to 3 days back. This ultimately allowed me to develop more courses, and then I just was able to keep the momentum going, and that ultimately became full curriculums for multiple departments in the company.
One of the things I like so much about this conversation as it truly serves as a how-to guide, right? And each of those phases, from planning to execution and overseeing ongoing success, are equally important. Not one is given some priority over the other. So thanks for walking us through that process.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of the tools that you have found that are game changers as you've gone through the process of building and rolling out your e-learning initiatives?
Sure. So we use iSpring as our LMS, but they also have great authoring tools that really allowed me up front to get the ball rolling. For instance, their e-learning courses are simply converting PowerPoints into HTML5. So any PowerPoint presentation can instantly become an online course that has enrollment tracking, it has reporting. So anyone in my company, even if it's not myself, can send me a training that they themselves had made in PowerPoint. I can get that published, and I can do that in less than 5 minutes. Quizzing is another big feature that we use all the time. My favorite part of the quiz creator is that it goes beyond just the true and false and multiple choice questions, because I find that those get very stale.
Very. I totally agree with you, by the way. Like, boring.
Right. So one of my favorite things to do, because we're very much software intensive, our training is all done, here's our software, here's how you use the system. So I'll take screenshots of the software screen that our employees are going to see, and I'll say, okay, what button do you click to get to the proper window based on the question that the customer just asked? Things along those lines, and it really makes it more dynamic and more engaging. Finally, we are a call center based business, so we use one of their features, which is a conversation simulator. So it sets up a conversation between a customer and our own agent. The customer will say something, and then our agent is given multiple choices about how they can respond to whatever that situation is. This has proven to be invaluable as we, add more and more scenarios in there so that they can get what is essentially hands-on training without being put into the risky situation of saying the wrong thing with a real customer.
I have to ask you, I mean, game changers, I did use that on purpose, right? Were there moments of that both in the implementation process as well as like when you got to employees taking courses? Like, did you actually have those along the way or not so much?
No, we absolutely did. For instance, we have one department with a curriculum that's fully developed. Our onboarding time for that department has gone from what was essentially 2 full weeks of training with a trainer in person to 4 to 5 days. So these new employees are going through the training at their own pace, which is huge, by the way. You know, when you have 10 people together, some are going to get it quicker, some are going to be slower, some are going to understand the computer softwares a little bit faster. So being able to go at your own pace is monumental for us. But they also can still get the personal attention when needed of a trainer or a mentor. So, 2 weeks cut down to 4 to 5 days has been huge as far as the hiring process goes and as far as onboarding costs go.
Well, that is so great. I mean, we're HR tech lovers here at Talent Culture Work Trends, and it's so cool to see how these authoring and deployment tools have become so user-friendly, yet they have this maximum impact. I mean, when I hear 2 to 3 days of saving for talent, right, for time, that's incredible. It really is. I just need to state it out loud. So tell me, what do you feel is the key to successfully introducing eLearning and LMS, new courses, and other tools to leadership and or the user base?
So I would start with the buy-in. The buy-in is very important from, all the way from C-suite level down to who is ultimately going to be the user base for the e-learning. So what I needed to do in my situation, I knew that I needed a plan. I knew that I needed steps to present to get buy-in from the C-suite. And I needed ultimately to be kind of talking it up and creating this shift in ideology about training. I wanted to try and make it a positive thing instead of a negative, like, oh, well, I need training, so that means I must have done something bad. Or, well, I have to go to a training. This is just going to be such a waste of time. I already know what I'm doing. And it really solved all of those problems when I could get that buy-in. And from there, I would just say it just takes a leap of courage to believe in yourself, believe in your team, and dive into it. It just takes one small step to ultimately get the ball rolling. And from there, it's going to get easier and easier.
And you don't have to be perfect.
Absolutely not.
To me, that's one of the big takeaways of this conversation. Just do it. I mean, actually, if we just say it's not going to be perfect and it's okay at the beginning of this, I think we're going to be better off, especially even to leaders who are cutting checks for this kind of technology. It's okay to say, let the team fail 1 or 2 times. It's going to get better and better. We iterate as we go. So for any of our listeners out there who are embarking on this important journey, it is useful to review the process we've discussed today. I think wherever you are, from initial ideation to budgeting, including pitching the idea to leadership, I know how hard that can be. Lean into us if you need help. All the way to mapping out e-learning journeys, creating courses, keeping content fresh, everyone. That's the world that we live in here at Talent Culture, as you know. Marketing their benefits. This is also very useful, Kyle. So I just want to thank you for spending your valuable time with the Work Trends community here. And any final thoughts for our audience today?
The only final thing that I would say is there are so many great resources out there that you will be able to find to dive into the e-learning world. I was not trained in teaching, in e-learning development. None of that was, my formal education. In fact, my formal education was sports management. I'm a long way from there at this point, but it is my passion and I truly love my job. But I couldn't have gotten there without a ton of great resources along the way. Find podcasts like this, find videos, find articles, around training theory, and you will get from A to B. It won't be mistake-free, like you've said, but it will end up working in the end.
Kyle, if anybody wants to reach you directly, what's the best way to connect?
I would say that my email is probably best, and that is kyle.matthews@bcservice.com. I'm sure that it's going to be included somewhere in the description here.
You bet. All right, well, listen, thank you, and we really appreciate your sage.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
What a fantastic podcast today. We really peeled back the layers of what it takes for anyone who knows that their organizational learning processes should be improved, but doesn't quite know how to begin. This conversation was chock full of excellent guidance from our friend Kyle. Here's a few of my takeaways. Number 1, understand the gaps in your organization's learning initiatives and thoughtfully outline the criteria for a tech partner who can provide streamlined and sustainable solutions. Number 2, I encourage everyone to discover or rediscover the tools available for authoring, deploying, and measuring e-learning initiatives because this world continues to evolve. And number 3, know your audience. Whether you're educating leadership about why e-learning is a worthwhile investment or encouraging team members to take courses, clearly articulate why this is a benefit to the business or the individual. Kyle, thanks for joining us today. I've really enjoyed riding alongside you on your e-learning adventure that I'm sure faced its challenges, and we heard about some of those, but it's also been fulfilling and successful. And last but not least, the talent culture community. We want to hear from you. Number 1, do you believe that your organization's e-learning has room for improvement? Number 2, if you do not have an e-learning component to employee education, why not? And number 3, what criteria do you feel is important when choosing an e-learning? Question number 3, what criteria do you feel is important when choosing a learning technology partner? Visit us on Twitter, X, LinkedIn, and the Instagram to share your responses to these questions, or feel free to contact me personally at Megan M. Bureau on the socials or mbureau@talentculture.com. Thank you so much for listening to the Work Trends Podcast, the place to find meaningful connections at work. If you love what we do here, make sure to share our podcast with your friends and neighbors and colleagues, or send us a question on social media using the hashtag WorkTrends. See you all again soon.
Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Just a reminder that you can hear all the Work Trends podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and on the podcast page at talentculture.com. Be sure to subscribe so you can listen on the go and stay up to date on all the latest news you want to hear. I look forward to catching up with you next time. I hope today's information made you wiser, happier, more informed, and most importantly, thinking of how you can use it to improve the quality of your life.